So this is a profit and loss for Sodexo. We can see at the top here are revenues and at the bottom are all the costs. So this is consistent with any other P&L, except with Sodexo you can see all the different cost centres here going all the way through. I'm just scrolling down there. So the most important points about this particular P&L is you want to have a look at the revenue here. For this month it was 444,000 plus. But the important thing is to make sure you actually capture all revenues. So in here we can see some things on back charge. This is something you can ask your operations manager about, but in your scope of works is a percentage to add to a back charge. So it might be 10% or 12%, but you need to make sure you do actually add on that percentage. So whatever it costs you plus that percentage. If you're not sure what back charge is or how to do it or what your percentage is, then make sure you discuss it with your operations manager. Down here, the most significant costs for site will be your food costs. For this example, it's 87,000, and your labour costs here is 268,000, and that's a link to your man day, the man day exercise we did yesterday. So to make sure that the man day amount, the number of people you have on site, is appropriate. If it's not appropriate according to how many people are being accommodated at site, you're going to be way off here and cause yourself all sorts of problems, and we'll have a look at that shortly. So if you look at these other kind of costs, they pale, you know, compared to the food and the labour costs. So that's why we need to control those costs in particular. So we're now just going to have a quick look at what can happen if you do stuff up those two costs. So here's a little example. Branislav actually explained this in the pilot, so I've just nicked his little example here. So in this spreadsheet it says 444,000. We're just going to do a theoretical exercise here. So say you bring in $380,000 worth of revenue. That would be up here. Let's say your food costs are 87,000, your personnel or labour costs are 268,000. So if you take 87,000 and 268,000 from 380,000 for that month, you're going to be in the positive to $25,000 or a margin of 6.6%. But let's say the next month the sales dropped a bit, the revenue dropped to 350k, and you actually forgot to adjust the food and labour costs. So the food and labour costs stay virtually the same, so you'd have to minus that of 350k. Now you're down $5,000. And looking at the sort of tight margins we work on, it would be almost impossible to pick that up. So this is why it's so important to know your labour costs, to know your food costs, and make sure they're entered correctly, because if you enter something wrong, it will stay there. You need to analyse and pick it up. As a last note from Keith, if you don't happen to get a P&L from your operations manager, the most important 3 points he makes is to ensure you capture all those revenues, just like I mentioned before, to know your food cost budget and manage it, and to know your labour. So have good visibility across those different increments and make sure that the manning level is right. So we're just going to have a quick look at a man day rate or a manning schedule here. So I just talked about labour. So here we have the different increments going from if there's 0 to 50 people accommodated all the way to if there's 451 to 500 people accommodated on site. So for argument's sake, if we took this increment here, 301 to 350 people accommodated on site, looking at the midpoint, which is your break-even point, there should be roughly 21 people on site. So if you earlier in the month had 400 people on site and you had roughly 24 or 25, at the end of the month it drops, you're only accommodating 300 odd people and you haven't adjusted that rate, then you might be spending far too much on labour. So this is why it's really important to know what these rates should be and make sure you manage your site according to those rates. So hopefully that's been pretty clear. If you have any questions on this, just make sure you speak with your operations manager.